went back and watched all of the Conjuring films over again so I can give a ranking. So let's talk about Frank ranking the Conjuring series right now. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Thank you so much for spending time with me as we rant about movies, comic books, and television shows, as well as the occasional board game. I'm your host, Frank Zyko, an award-winning screenwriter, novelist, and comic book writer, as well as a filmmaker. And yeah, we're going to talk about all the Conjuring films, whether it's 9 or whether it's 10. We're going to talk about that right now. I know most of them, I don't wear a hat, having a bad hair day, so I figured I'd wear a hat today. So don't get used to it. I don't really like wearing hats, but considering it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, didn't feel like doing my hair up. So there you go. I always record these things way late at night, and then I edit them in the morning. But yeah, I've been wanting to do a look back at all of the Conjuring films now that the series is over. Well, the series is over as far as films are concerned. I'm hearing word that they're going to try to do a TV show out of it. That is a bad idea. They should just let things lie at this point. They are going out with the highest grossing horror movie of all time with the Conjuring 4 Last Rites. And it was, it's not only the idea of it, because basically it's like a movie like, show like Supernatural or whatever, where it's, ghost hunters, going out and debunking or taking care of spirits. And it's really the cast and crew, meaning the directors, that have really brought this to life. You can't just throw it onto a television, as Marvel can attest and Star Wars can attest. You just can't throw a movie franchise onto a television screen and say, yeah, it's going to work as well. It's just not. It doesn't work that way. So, naturally, going back to watch them all, there was a lot of stuff that I forgot. Now, is there 9? Because I see a lot of people that are doing these rankings that are adding Curse of La Llorona in here, but I went back and looked, and it's not part of the universe. I'm just going to throw it in there also. But I know for a fact that it's not actually part of the Conjuring universe, even though it's kind of the same filmmakers that are behind it. All right, so let's jump into, I'm going to call this 10, because I am going to throw La Llorona in there just to talk about it quickly. But I know, you don't need to tell me that it's not actually part of the thing, because I know that. But I want to talk about it for a little bit, because I got something actually special to talk about with La Llorona. All right, so number 10 for me, and I got to say that going back and watching ones that I didn't originally like, I found a new way of watching them, or going back and watching them, weren't as bad as I had thought. A lot of them that I didn't like, I actually said, I think I was a little too hard on this. Maybe because now, over the last 10 years, we've had such shit that the stuff that I thought was shit back then was actually really good. But yeah, okay, so let's go with number 10, and that is the original Annabelle. So originally, I was very disappointed with the original Annabelle. And, it's with the ending, with her jumping out of the window, kind of doing the sacrifice thing. I thought the setup was kind of weak and stuff like that. But I thought the acting was generally good in it. And I thought that, again, I was just a little bit too hard on it. I found a lot of charm to it, especially with being in the time period that they were emulating, because it was a period piece. I thought the costumes and everything else were really good. And but the funny part is, if you look at the real Annabelle, because remember, this is taken from the true life story of Ed and Lorraine Warren and their daughter Judy, right? And, they touch on other things as well, like Amityville. We're going to get into that as well. But it's funny, I lived in Long Island, so we used to pass the Amityville house. You could see it from the highway. And it had those, very distinct windows. So it's like, wow, okay, we could see the friggin' Amityville house from every time we drove past it. It was pretty wild. But remember that, I guess they made a deal with them. But if you really look at the lives of Ed and Lorraine Warren, they were mostly seen as hacks, right? 90% of what they display in the movies didn't really happen. And, they didn't really happen. On top of that, their involvement didn't happen. Most of the time, they were asked to leave before anything even happened because they were pushed. They were pushing to make money. So that's where, there's a lot. If you do some of the research, it kind of disillusions the thing. So you have to look at these characters as fictional characters. And I think that's a good way of doing it. But I think Lorraine has died now as well. I think she died a few years ago. But anyway, if you look at the original Annabelle, and they make reference to this in different ways in the movies, but the Annabelle character doll is a Raggedy Ann. It was Raggedy Ann and Raggedy Andy. It was a Raggedy Ann doll. So you look at that in the case, and it's all smiling. It looks really weird. I'll see if I can find a picture and put it up, but it's really weird. It looks like a joke. So the filmmakers were probably like, no, no, that's not going to work. And I got to say that they did choose a very creepy doll to replace the Raggedy Ann, which I guess by, legally they couldn't do they weren't going to get rights to it, and it just looked too silly on top of that. But they do make reference where they show the Raggedy Ann doll in the various movies, to kind of reference. But yeah, it wasn't going to work on a horror movie with a Raggedy Ann doll kind of going. Plus, you couldn't move the head, so it knocks out a lot of shit. But anyway, so the original Annabelle was directed by John Leonetti, and it was written by Gary Daberman. And, I think that James Wan basically gets the credit for starting the franchise, but Peter Safran is definitely part of that group. They're almost like partners on this thing, and the amount of money they made from this thing was crazy. So the original Annabelle, because again, the numbers shows La Llorona as part of the group, but everybody else shows that it's not. But anyway, the original Annabelle was done in 2014. So it was the second movie, okay, the original Annabelle. And it was made for $6.5 million. Wow. And that's only 10 years ago, a little over 10 years. And it was done for $7 million. It grossed worldwide $256 million. So even if you take 3 times the amount, right, which is 2.5 to 3 times is what you need to break even. So let's just make it 7 million. Make the numbers easy. 7 times 3 is 21. So it needed $21 million to break even. It made $256 million. That is an amazing return. Amazing return. So it was definitely a success. And that was one of the only offshoots that had 3 films as well. All right, so number 9 for me is the original The Nun. Also, I was I hated the original Nun when I first watched it. Hated it. But the original Nun was 2018 because he was introduced in the second movie. And so the Nun was one, two, three, four, the fifth film. So this was definitely far into it. And the original Nun had a price tag of $22 million. So we've jumped now into, still $22 million is still a small budget film, just FYI. And the opening weekend, it did 55. So it broke even on its first weekend. And it went on to make $366 million. I think that is the highest one outside of the one that just came out, which is now the highest one. So, again, I hated the original film. Even looking back at it, I think that Valak, which is the nun's name, the demon of the run, I still think that the demon should have spoken. I think it should have had the ability of speech through the nun. It does talk here and there, but if you're, it's like, you're hearing it in your head. But I think that it should have been able to speak on its own. It would have been a more powerful character. But what I do like about the Nun films is that they take place in Europe, in a monastery or or a nunnery or whatever, and it has a all the looks of the film are great. It has this very gothic, stone look of everything, and I really, really like it as a different look than any of the other films because it takes place in these locales, and I really like that. I also like Tessa Familia in the role, which is very interesting that they're sisters. So that's I think that's kind of cool. All right, so but that again, these two movies, the first time I saw them, I hated them and didn't even go back to watch them again until now. This is my only second time watching both of those films, and that again, they're not nearly as bad as I originally thought. In fact, and I thought the end was kind of cheesy originally with the blood of where it was behind the thing, and I'm like, oh man, what are we watching here? Like National Treasure? But after you know what's coming, you're like, you know what? It wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. All right, so number 8 is The Curse of La Llorona for me. And I like this movie better than the other two that I just named because of the cast. I really love the cast in here. And the movie's not great. And it's on the bottom end of this. But it only cost $9 million to make. It was done in 2019. And it still went on to gross $123 million. So again, you multiply 9 times 3. It only needed $27 million to break even, and it still made 123. So it netted $100 million. Not a bad take, even with the film that is critically panned and mostly everybody hated, and I think that's one of the reasons why they said nah, it's not part of the Conjuring universe because everybody hated it. Not me. I've seen the movie. I own it, and I've seen the movie about 3 times. Anyway, all of these are on HBO Max, on the streaming service. So I didn't even have to look far to see them all. I didn't go back and watch La Llorona again because I had just gone back and watched it a few months ago, and I was just in the mood for it. And then I went to Texas for a convention, for a comic convention, and where I got to see, all the Thinking Critical guys. And Patricia Velasquez was there. And originally I wasn't going to go talk to her, but I ended up talking to her, and she signed this for me. And she's a great, great lady. And she really didn't have a line or anything like that. I felt kind of bad. She's also from The Mummy. And, I sat and talked with her for a while. And we were talking about the business and stuff like that because I told her I was a producer. And I said, there's nothing going on in L.A. That's why I had to move. And she says, Frank, look around. Look around at all of the actors that are here. And she says, that tells you that nobody's working. So anyway, great lady, and that's why I wanted to, shove this in there, even though it was not part of the Conjuring universe. It is, according to the numbers, which is where I get my financial information, but it's not according to anything else that you read on the internet. But anyway, I did not hate this movie. I thought it had some charm, and then the cast really, really did it for me. All right, so jumping on to number 7, and that is The Conjuring 4, Last Rites. That is the new one that came out. I liked the last third of this film quite a bit, where it really started getting going, but it... and this was also the most expensive of all of the films, just FYI. And that's probably mostly because the actors are like, look, you got to cut us in at this point. And I just talk about Black Endpoints. They probably got major upfront money because it's their chemistry that really makes the whole thing. I mean, they've been doing this now for like 10 years now. Let's see, the original Conjuring was what year was the original Conjuring? 2009. What was it? 13. So 13 to 25. They've been doing this for 12 years, man, and they deserve anything they can get at this point. They have great chemistry, and I think that's what everybody went to go see. So it was $55 million budget. It made an opening weekend with $84 million just domestically. And it was $402 million so far it's made. And it's still in the theater. So for all we know, it's going to hit $420. Wow. On $55 million. Good for Warner Brothers. I'm happy that Zaslav is getting this stuff off the ground. If anything, Warner Brothers deserves it more than any other production company out there anymore, any studio. So anyway, if you multiply 55 or just make it easy, make it 50. And so it's, $150 million they needed to make. And they made it just domestically. Everything internationally was all gravy. And that's before it even gets to... Think about this. It was $55 million, right? Fantastic Four only made $100 million more on a $200+ million budget. The same thing with Superman. $225 million. It made $6, right? So it just goes to show you, it doesn't have to be a huge budget. It has to be able to distribute, but the good thing about this is they don't have to worry about distribution. A, it's been around forever, and B, Warner Brothers has their own distribution company, so they don't have to worry about distribution. But on an independent basis, you do. But anyway, so good for them. My problem, why is this so far down on the list? It's because it was too drawn out. I like the character of Judy. I like the character of the fiance, but they spent way too much time on them and not as much time on the family that was being haunted. But again, when it gets to the last third of the film, where all of those pieces connect, it just, then it really runs. So they needed to cut down at least a half hour. It's just way too long, and I think they made a bad decision in doing that. However, the numbers are not showing that. The numbers are saying, this is awesome! But all the reviews I've seen, they're all the same. They just said that it's too long and drawn out, and it needed to be cut back. And I think that it would have been a far, far better film if they had done that. All right, number 6. Okay, this is The Nun 2. I like The Nun 2 better than I like The Nun 1. I do like the girl from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was in there. She was also in Rain, the TV show from the CW. Big fan of hers. I have no idea what her name is, but I'm a big fan of hers. I think she should be doing more work. I liked. The problem was that they forgot about the fact that Maurice tied into the other Conjuring film. Like, that was the great thing about Nun 1, is that Maurice ends up being the guy that they're doing The Exorcist on, that they, it affected her. He kept saying that this was one of the hardest things that she had done and blah, blah, blah. And that was tied in to the original Nun. And by doing the Nun 2, they broke that connection. They said, fuck the continuity. We're here to make money. At least we got back into a convent situation where it had the same kind of look and feel of what worked for Nun 1. I really liked the beginning scene with the boy. I thought that had a lot of tension throughout, with him with the wine, and then the ball, and then the priest going up in flames, and then the holy water turning into steam. I liked a lot of that. I liked the imagery of the nun's shadow coming up. I thought all that stuff was really, really good. So the Nun was directed by Corin Hardy, and the screenwriter was Gary Daubman. Remember that the Nun was actually created in Conjuring 2. But the Nun 2 was done by Michael Chavez, who did The Devil Made Me Do It, Nun 2, and Conjuring Last Rites. So he did 3 of them back to back. The Nun 2 was written by Ian Goldberg and Richard Nunez. So nobody that's done, and that was a standalone as far as the writing's concerned, with a story by Akela Cooper. So yeah, but the Nun 2 made far more money than actually it didn't. It didn't make more money. It made less money than the original Nun by $100 million. So they upped the budget. So the original Nun was 22. The second Nun was 38. So it's almost double. And it's still, opening weekend it made 32. So again, at 38, just make it 40. 40 times 3 is 120. It made 86 just domestic. So it more than doubled what its break even was. So again, it made lots of money. And I did like, they did the same type of thing where it was like National Treasure, where they had to find the eye. And it was the eye of the devil, or that shined the light, kind of like Indiana Jones, type of thing with the Eye of Ra, or whatever it was, Staff of Ra. Same type of thing with the jewel. But I liked it. Okay, it was a throwback. It was stolen, but I still kind of liked it. I liked the devil thing. I thought that was kind of cool with the horns that was chasing them around. I liked all that. And I liked the fact that it was in Maurice. But again, it destroyed the canon. But, it was not a strong film for certain. But I liked it way better. And I still, I really want to look up, if anybody knows how they did this, the part which I thought was very, very original and creative was the magazine rack. I love that scene where it's, shifting to the point where it makes the production designer that had to make all those magazines and where they were going to sit and stuff like that. That's such an intricate scene, but you don't realize how much work that had to go in there to make that. So hats off to those production designers, man, and those prop makers, because wow, what a great job. And I really I don't know how, because they had to blow in certain ways to make everything move, unless it was all CGI. I would. That's why I got to look it up. It's definitely, it may have been CGI enhanced, but they still had to make a shit ton of stuff to make that work. But I want to look that up, because there's got to be somewhere on there that shows me how that was made. But anyway, I think this one had a lot of good stuff to it, um, and I like the whole changing the water into wine, or changing the wine into the blood of Christ stuff. I thought that really worked too. But anyway, so there's the story of Nun 2. I again, not a great movie, but I liked a lot of pieces of that. All right, so before we go into the final five, remember to give me a like, give me a thumbs up if you can. If you can't subscribe, please do. Ring that bell, ding, ding. Share this video out there. Remember, too, that I'm a writer myself, so check out my stuff on Amazon. You can type my name in or link in the description below. You'll see my 4-novel quadrilogy sci-fi epic series called Destiny Aurora. It was made into a board game, an RPG, a graphic novel, you name it. It's also on Audible. But if you like Star Wars, Star Trek, Guardians of the Galaxy, you're going to see all those elements in there. It's basically an epic space fantasy. So if you like that kind of stuff, it has some chuckles in there as well. The audiobook was done really well by a husband-wife team, so all the females have their own voice and the males have their own voice. Also, you'll see my YA fantasy novel, Tales of Ravenor, the Iron Witch. So if you like Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, all that stuff, The Lord of the Rings, you're going to see some stuff you'll like in there. We got dragons in there. We got a whole new magic system, stuff like that. So you can definitely get into that one. And my new graphic novel, Fairy Tales of Terror, is just about finished on Kickstarter. So if you haven't jumped in there, you should. I have a Psycho Cinderella, a killer Captain Hook. They're running around New York City killing people. Neverland's Tiger Lily comes in as a badass, chasing them around. We don't know what their end goal is, but she's going to find out and have to stop it. But really good stuff. We are 300% funded at this point. We're unlocking stretch goals, and including STL figures of the characters, some collectible cards, all free if you jump in. So definitely get in there now. Go to the QR code here, link in the description below. We're going to be done in just a couple of days, so don't lose out. And I will be signing them. You can also buy digital stuff, whatever. All right, so let's jump back into number 5. And for me, that is The Conjuring 3. That's The Devil Made Me Do It. Again, another movie that I did not like initially. And it really I watched it again, and it really kind of moved up my list quite a bit because of the fact that the reason I didn't like it was because I didn't like that it was an actual person instead of an entity. I was kind of disappointed by that. But naturally, watching it again, I already knew. So I wasn't hampered by the reveal that I didn't like. So it moved up quite a bit. I liked the whole guy being possessed in the beginning because he sacrificed himself for the little kid. And I liked the whole scene, with on the cliff and all that stuff. It had some really good stuff to it. And the whole altar thing I thought was cheesy originally, but I liked it better the second time that I saw it. And again, the chemistry between Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga is just undeniable. They work so well together. In fact, I liked him in Aquaman. I think he should have been Aquaman. He looks far more like Aquaman than Jason Momoa did, but it might have not have made $1 billion if Patrick Wilson was in it. But anyway, their chemistry is just undeniable, and I think that's one of the things that makes this series work so well. But anyway, so this again, I disliked this movie far less, and it kind of raised up my list quite a bit on my second viewing. Okay, so let me see something here. I didn't I didn't go into the numbers on that one. So The Devil Made Me Do It actually was done in 2021, so only about 4 years ago. $40 million budget. So again, we were raising from 22, 38 to 40, so we're slowly going up, and that's because they didn't go crazy. They didn't go to like $100 million. They still stayed below that 50 million mark. Like Blumhouse, outside of Megan 2, his sweet spot is $10 million. He doesn't go above 10 million because he knows that's a sweet spot. But I think they knew that the 50 million or the 40 million was the sweet spot because only one movie went over that 40 million. But anyway, Opening weekend only did 24 million. They were probably pretty worried. Domestic box office only did 65. So international is what pulled it out of its hole. So 40 million needed obviously 120 if you multiply it times 3. And so they didn't do 100 million net on the thing. So it made it 206. So, 240 would have made a double. Or even 120 or 220 would have given them 100 net. So they netted less money on this one than any of the others. So, which makes the risk of going into last rights and raising the budget another 15 million more of a risk. But it ended up that, so the last movie did 200, the new movie did 4. So there's no risk, I guess. There was no risk. People were ready for it, man. That's the thing. They were ready for a movie like that. So, all right. So that's number 3. That's number 5 for Conjuring 3. All right. So number 4. This is Annabelle Creation. So I liked it the first time I saw it. I think I liked it even more the second time I saw it. And because, again, that's not a movie. Like, the only one out of this that I saw multiple times was The Nun 2 and the Conjuring 2. Those were the only 2 that I saw multiple times. And before seeing them again just now. But anyway, so Annabelle Creation, I thought it was very different because this took place in a boarding house. Again, we also have a time, it's also a time period situation, it's a period piece. And this is about these girls that are basically homeless. And I also didn't realize that the girl from Shazam, the one that plays Mary Marvel, is in this movie. I think she's gorgeous too. I wish she'd get more roles. But anyway, so she plays kind of the mean girl in this one. But you have the 2 younger girls that are more of the leads here, and then the girl from the woman from Lord of the Rings, and Sabrina is also but she has a very small role here. I did like the makeup effects on her face as well. And I kind of like the backstory that happens with it. But overall, I thought this was a pretty good movie. I love the chair on the wall. They always add little elements that they end up using very, very well. And I like the fact that she was possessed. And I love the fact that they connect it with Annabelle 1. Because it ends up that she ends up being adopted, and she becomes the daughter that ends up killing the family in the first Annabelle. So I love how that's all connected. I wish that Maurice stayed connected as well, but whatever. And they could have connected La Llorona into there somehow, but they ended up not doing that. All right, so again, good stuff. This one. The Annabelle Creation, $15 million budget. $15 million, and making it a period piece on top of that. High marks. Of course, there really was no big actors in the thing. Opening weekend, $35 million. Wow. That's amazing. So remember, multiply it times 3 at $45 million. And domestic box office alone was $100 million. So domestic alone carried it. And it ended up at $300 million. Amazing. And that was in 2017. So it ended up with The Conjuring, Annabelle, Conjuring 2, Annabelle Creation, right before The Nun. So this was the fourth movie at 2017. So 2013, 2014, 2016, 2017, 2018. So they started putting out like one every year. It's kind of like a Marvel thing. I guess that's why Safran got his position in DC. I don't think he's really. I think James Gunn is taking control of all that. I don't think he's got any control whatsoever. All right, so moving on to number 3. We're getting into the top 3 here. And that is, for me, The Conjuring. The original Conjuring movie that has to do with offshoot of Amityville. Because if you do some research, you find out that the whole Amityville story was debunked completely. It does not that doesn't make a good horror movie, or even a remake of a horror movie, or even an offshoot of a horror movie. But the house, like I said, has always been very ominous looking, even from the outside. But it was all debunked, so it really didn't happen. The murder happened, murder suicide happened, but the haunting did not. So that was the original one was 2013, I believe. I think we actually already talked about that. 2013, and this was directed by James Wan, produced, of course, by Peter Safran. James Wan was not a producer on this one, where he becomes a producer later on. And the original Conjuring was a $20 million budget, which is pretty sizable for a brand new thing. There wasn't a franchise yet. But opening weekend, it did 41. So it doubled. It doubled it in the first weekend, just domestically. Domestic box office became $137 million, which, outside of the newest one, that is the highest domestic. So it's definitely been an international movie series more than anything else. The international has been carrying it since the first one up to the last one. Right? So the last one did 152 million domestic. Everything else is below that. And it ended up at $316 million. So that was still the beginning. The first one is still the highest of all of them outside. So it's the last one, 4, is the highest grossing one. Then it goes to number 2. The Nun at 366. And then the first one. So it's still the third highest grossing of the series, is the very first one. This one really delved more into the family in the house than it did the Warrens, towards the who actually don't really come in towards the end. In fact, I think the husband, was it that one? Yeah, the husband comes to them and says, "Can you help us?" And originally, Ed says no. So anyway, pretty interesting stuff. The first movie is still a very, very good film, but I think that some of the other ones are better, and but still the third highest grossing in the series. So there you go. Sometimes you can't beat the original, but in this case, in my opinion, it does. All right, number 2 is Annabelle Comes Home. I really, really like this film. I thought it was a really, really good idea. McKenna Grace takes over the role of Judy, who has been the same actress continuously, except this film. And I think McKenna Grace does a really, really good job here. I'm looking forward to seeing some of the stuff she's doing now. I know she's coming out with a new movie, and she barely even looks like herself because she's getting older. But the Annabelle Comes Home was 2019, and it was a $27 million budget. So, again, very, very small, considering the first movie in 2013 was 20. So it's only raised like $7 million, although majority of the film takes place only in the house. And the opening weekend did 20 million. Domestic did 74. So even if you make it 30, you're at, between 90, 85, and 90 million it needs to make, and ended up grossing $231 million. So good job. I love the whole thing with the color wheel. I like the whole thing about, her birthday, and that she's not getting along, with the other kids because her parents are in the newspaper. And this really delved into the trophy room, which is why I really like it, because I'm like, up till now, you barely ever use the trophy room. And I like the whole story of the dark-haired girl. She's looking to have a connection with her father, who she feels guilty about killing in like a car crash. Everybody says it's not her fault. We really don't know for a fact whether it was or wasn't. And that was her whole motivation for going in there, was to try to make a connection with her father, which I really like that. I like the stuff on the television in the room. It had some really good stuff. I wish we had seen some of the nun stuff in there, but we didn't get to see any of that. But there was some really good stuff in there, and I like the use of the trophy room, which it's the only film of the series where we get to see any more of it than a few seconds. So I liked all that. Again, I thought the premise was really good. I liked the whole thing with the ferryman and all that, and the little game that they played with the hands coming out. Good stuff all across the board as far as Oscar. I thought the three actresses did a really good job of playing off one another, and she's like, "What did you do? What did you touch?" And she says, "Everything." I love it. Really good stuff. For number 2, so this was directed by Gary Dauberman. I think this is the only one. Yeah, he was more of a writer. Like, he wrote the original Nun movie. And that was my only problem, too, with Nun 2, is that they had every opportunity in the world to create more of a backstory of Valak and, go into lore, and they didn't do any of it. I would have gone heavy into lore for Valak, and they didn't touch it. But anyway, Annabelle Comes Home, he wrote with James Wan. He was story with James Wan and Gary Dauberman, so himself, and then he got to direct it. So he got to write and direct it. And I thought he did a good job. I have no problem with any of the directing or anything. I think he did a really, really good job. So yeah, hats off to Gary Dauberman for jumping from The Nun to Annabelle. Good stuff. I like that they promote from Interior also. Okay, this video's going on way longer than I expected it to. All right, so number 1, not a shock to anything because there's only one left, and that is The Conjuring 2. That is my favorite of the Conjuring universe. And The Conjuring 2 had to do with the one in the Enfield stuff that's in the UK. I liked that movie a lot. And I like the fact that they said, no, she was making everything up. But then you find out that she had to stage that whole thing in the kitchen because the demon said that she was going to kill everybody if she didn't. So really good stuff there. The Conjuring 2 was 2016, directed by James Wan. It was written by a whole pile of people. Chad Hayes, Carrie Hayes, James Wan, David Leslie Johnson. There's the whole bit. And then, of course, Peter Safran in the producer chair. So, yeah, The Conjuring 2, the Enfield case, $40 million budget. So it had the same thing as The Devil. So it was already basically up there for The Devil Made Me Do It. They had the same budget. But this one did far better than 3. So 2 did way, way better than 3 did, even though it had the same budget. Domestically, it made $100 million, and then internationally, $306 million. So it did way over $100 million more than, or just about $100 million more than Devil Made Me Do It. And I think it deserved it as well. I thought it was far better film, for certain. And this is where we got introduced to the nun, because she actually writes in her Bible the name when she has that thing. I like that. I like Judy being involved in here as well to a certain degree. I didn't remember. They spent so much time on Judy in the newest movie. I forgot that she was in the other movies. That's one of the reasons I wanted to watch it. I'm like, was Judy in the other movies? And she had a big part in the other movies. I just totally forgot about her. But she had a pretty big role in this one as well, in number 2. And yeah, I liked a lot of the stuff that had to do with the chair. Just really good stuff. I like the stuff on the new stuff with the mirror. I did like that. But I thought that 2 had some really good stuff. And then the whole thing about her seeing Ed die, and then seeing the tree, become basically a knife, and then hanging out the window. There was some really good stuff in there. Where the stakes were really, really high. You didn't know if he was going to get hurt or whatever. And was this the one with that he had the heart problem or whatever? I can't remember if that was the one with the heart problem or not. Maybe that was number. I think that was 3. That was 3 where he was taking the pills. But anyway, really good stuff in here, and I definitely recommend number 2. I liked all the stuff in the room with the crosses turning upside down. A very, very simple effect, but I thought it was really good. And the having the guy come in and seeing the whole room destroyed. Even the cops, having the piece with the cops come in. Anyway, really good stuff. And I forgot the name of the other woman that was the mom, but she was in the last movie too. So yeah, good stuff. All right, I'm going to close this up because I'm already at like 45 minutes talking about The Conjuring. Anyway, let me know what you have your ranking. What's your favorite out of the group? And let's see if we agree, disagree, all that stuff. But either way, I like them all. I had no problem rewatching them all over again. So no matter what you come up with, it's not going to hurt my feelings. Anyway, give me a like, give me a subscribe if you can. If you can't, ring that bell, ding, ding, subscribe. And share this video out there. Remember to check out my stuff on Amazon. Just type my name in or link description below. And definitely jump into Fairy Tales of Terror because we only have a couple of days left. QR code here, link description below. Psycho Cinderella, how can you go wrong? You're going to have fun with it. All right, I'll see you guys on the next one. Have a great week. All right, bye-bye.